David Wigan, 10-minute daily reality check. On today's show, we won't be talking about Matt Lauer anymore, thank God. Nor will we talk about any of the gropers and the feelers and the creepers, nor will we talk about Donald Trump, nor will we talk about any other man that was outed today, because to be honest with you, I am getting extremely bored with that reality. The other day, we had my daughter on. She sang songs and Christmas songs, and she talks about the magic of Santa Claus. So I'm going to have Fitness Claus on today for those of you who really don't know that you can actually stay looking amazing through the holidays. I have Fitness Claus on right now. I'm going to introduce her in about 15 seconds because I don't want to see y'all do these ridiculous New Year's resolutions. They're bullshit New Year's resolutions. They mean absolutely nothing at all. So, without further ado, Zlata from Sexy Fit, right? Sexyfit.com?
Sexyfit.com. You got it.
Sexyfit.com. And I got your name right, too. It's such a mouthful for me. It's like a sexy name. I got to tell you something. To probably say your name during sex would not be easy. I would.
Don't try it at home, kids.
Yes, don't try it at home.
I
remember I talked to this. I was dating this woman who had a very funky name. And I was thinking like, no, I'm never going to be able to say it during sex. Never. I can't pronounce it. I can't pronounce it. Honestly, I can't pronounce it when we're walking around. So there's no way in the world I'm going to pronounce it in the heat of the moment. So anyway, tell me, how can people stay sexy and fit when they go over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house? They go for Thanksgiving, and then they go under the mistletoe and they sit there and suck down the multi-proceted cow pus eggnog that is non-GMO, that is totally GMO and everything else, and all the disgusting fruitcakes, things that you should never eat. So how can people stay sexy and fit during the holidays?
I think you just nailed it. I think you've outed my whole story.
Please, I hate outing stories. Please share it. I know you're going to go much deeper into it.
You know, I agree with you on the processed eggnog and sugar and things everywhere, and it can be very challenging to really stay out of the pretzel bowl, is what I call it. And I think the very first thing to keep in mind is that temptations are everywhere, and relying on your willpower is really not the way to roll in this particular situation, because willpower is only going to get you so far. What I love is questions, asking yourself particular questions when you're running into a situation where there's the eggnog and the cookie and the pretzel bowl and this and that. Because it really gets your mind moving, and you get in a frame of mind where you can be mindful. So if the question that you can ask yourself before eating something is this worth it? It will really create a whole new way of approaching the holidays and beyond the holidays. Really, it will apply to any time of the year, because you are now in your conscious mind consuming the things that you consciously know are beneficial to your body and beneficial to how you treat yourself.
You know, it's interesting being mindful, and is it worth it? You know, it is so true in every aspect of your life. It's like, is it really worth eating that extra piece of cake? Is it worth really drinking that extra drink? Is it worth having that extra slice of turkey? Is it worth having that extra piece of stuffing? And I find that a lot of people have really bad willpower. They want to be sexy and fit. They desire to be sexy and fit. They just really don't know how to control themselves at all. You know, and it's funny, I'll go to Target with my daughter who's 7. And she's really cute. She'll be like, we'll get in a Target, and she'll look at me and she'll be like, oh my God, I can't control myself in here. You know, she'll start freaking out. And the other day we were driving around. We had about an hour left before I had to drop her off at Mommy Dearest's house, right? And I look at her and I go, why don't we just go shopping a little bit and you just pick out some of the things you want for Christmas? She goes, you know, Daddy, I just can't control myself. So willpower is the art of controlling yourself for the greater good of who you are in the future. And the thing is, the heavier we get, the more out of control we get, the harder it is for you to actually lose that holiday weight. So I love how you call it monitoring, or, you know, that pretzel bowl. But what about the person that's got low self-esteem and they get depressed during the holiday time, and food is a pacifier for them. That pretzel sucking that salt off is just as good as that little pacifier they had when they were 2 years old. How do you work, and what type of advice can you give to those type of people?
I love that you're asking me this question. I'll actually disagree with you on needing willpower, because the less you feel as you have willpower, the more you spiral down. Willpower and mindfulness, I don't think they live on the same spectrum. While digital systems words, they could mean one thing to one person, one thing to another person. Willpower to me means, a healthy sense of self-control, but to other people, it could really trigger to feel even more like failure when, in fact, they just weren't set up for success. So for somebody who is experiencing any kind of depression, or maybe anxiousness, or maybe feeling separate from the world, which is really what happens during this time of the year. What we feel is separation from a place of love. What we feel is separation from a place of partnership. What we feel is separation from a place where we're connected to one another. And to further recreate the story that we're disconnected, that's when we sort of fly off the handle, start to tell ourselves we don't have willpower, and want the pretzel bowl, if you would. So the main thing here to catch is that when you are feeling on the verge of having a binge eating episode or emotional eating episode, what you need to remember is that you are part of somebody's life. You are part of a greater, universal collective, if you would. And further isolating yourself and eating alone at home, because that's what might feel good in the moment, isn't necessarily a solution to what it is that you're feeling. What you're feeling is separation, and the more you can connect with people in any kind of setting, that would be helpful. Even, library, coffee shop, getting with friends, something like that.
I love how you reframed it, because it is really good, because you're right. Food soothes, and people soothe even more. So the problem is, a lot of people will go soothe with food. They'll get too heavy. They won't feel attractive anymore. And then they don't really want to put themselves out socially. So it's kind of like a new reframing of it. Instead of dipping your hand into the pretzel bowl, dip your hand into the people bowl, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So every single time you reach for the pretzel, or the pretzel, and the pretzel can be, chocolate chip cookie, it could be ice cream, it could be pumpkin pie, whatever it is. Instead of that, dip into the people pool. Actually go somewhere and have a conversation, call a friend up, and get satiated by human connection. Because it really, if you think about it, it's the same dopamine high. It's the same exact feeling. Because I know I'm not a big food person at all. If I can blend every meal, I'd be fine. I could care less. To me, food is just, it's a way to the means to the end. I'm a health person, so I don't really care. I like to have very healthy blood panels and blood work, and I like my body to be lean and mean. So I get high. I don't get high off of eating a bag of pretzels. Sometimes I like to cheat and have a bag of pretzels, but I get high off of the conversations that we have as people, because that is the dopamine rush, and that's really what people are not. They're not pursuing, because it's easier to reach into the pretzel bowl than it is into the people bowl, because for some reason or another, we have all these expectations around the people bowl.
It's very interesting that you say that with reaching in for food, and even with connecting with people. Yes, you do release dopamine, which is your hormonal release of feeling good. When you're dipping into the people bowl, you're also releasing this hormone that is called oxytocin, which is our bonding hormone, connection hormone. And if you combine dopamine with oxytocin, especially if you're a woman, you're going to feel a whole lot better, because chemically, that's just science. That's just how it works. I think that that's something that we don't necessarily consider often, is that we are designed to connect. We're designed to release oxytocin, especially women, and especially how we're brought up, historically, as far as like gatherer, hunter. We enjoy groups, and when we get isolated from groups and tribes, it can be very, very depressing.
Yeah, it is. And we have become an isolated society. We can go even deeper into this, and we can go into the Facebook bowl and the Twitter bowl and the Instagram bowl, and realize that those really are empty calories. They're empty people calories. Every time you post something on Facebook, you're really just digesting empty people calories. It's not a substitute for the connection that you have with a person one-on-one or in a group. So you also got to look at it that way too, is how you're fulfilling and how you're not fulfilling your life, and stay off of social media pretzels, and stay off of pretzels themselves, and really start connecting as people, because it's such a great analogy you're giving, especially during this holiday time of year, when people really get down, they emotionally beat themselves up. And that comes down to our programming. Oh my God, grandma beat up, Mary, who went to the Thanksgiving dinner because Mary is still not with her boyfriend. And she saw her, sister and her new husband. And then she found out that the sister and the husband are pregnant. And the grandmother and the aunt goes, when are you ever going to meet somebody? And that starts that downward December cycle that leads to the ridiculous New Year's resolution that really continues the 2018 depression, because it's really at that moment recognizing what we're doing, why we're doing it. And you're right, we're really doing it because we're missing that incredible bond with another human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned social media in general, is because when we are on social media, we don't release oxytocin. We only release more dopamine. And releasing dopamine without oxytocin actually causes an addictive type of behavior, which is why, if we're going to talk about addictive type of behavior without the release of oxytocin, I think men and porn is going to be the biggest, brightest example, because that's not necessarily where the bonding hormone gets released. And in that particular case, oxytocin, because it's not acting as a bonding hormone, is actually acting as more of an addiction type hormone with dopamine together. So social media really does not substitute a real connection, and it's really quite crazy to witness where we're going with that. If anything, it makes you more depressed sitting on the couch, eating a dozen of something, and scrolling on Instagram, looking at everybody having a better time than you. So it's not.
Yeah, and sex. And watching porn is like literally still believing that Santa Claus comes down a chimney. Sex is never going to be Santa Claus. It's the most ridiculous. It's something I tell all the men that I've ever coached in my entire life. 30 days don't masturbate, and 30 days don't watch porn. And you'll start changing your entire perspective on life, because it is the most first off, not one woman would ever look at a porn and go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I want to be flipped over 13 different positions, and I want you to wear a FedEx outfit, and I want you to literally be yelling and screaming and having sex with me, and you've known me for 14 and a half seconds. It's such a male-based, ridiculous fantasy, and it doesn't work. But that's a whole other episode another day. Anyway, fit, trim, and feeling good and stepping out of that pretzel bowl and into the people bowl. Where can they reach you?
They can find me on sexyfit.com. I host an amazing podcast called The Sexy Fit Podcast. And I also have a book on Amazon called The Sexy Fit Method. So it's pretty impossible not to find me. So sexyfit.com, check it out.
Cool. We're going to have you back. The rest of you, 10-minute daily reality check comes back tomorrow with another dose of reality. This whole month is going to be Santa David giving you a different gift of reality every single day. The one thing that I asked for, which I haven't asked for in a week, is for you to literally take this podcast and stick it in Santa's bag so he can deliver it on Christmas Eve and everybody can listen to it. That way, then next year, we can just continue the fun. I'll see you all tomorrow.